So let's talk about 2023 and Facilis and what our NAB focus is. We're going to talk about new models. We have a couple of new models, one that you may not know about, under the radar, I'll talk about, and one that's new, and a lot of new models because we have a higher capacity drive now. Hub 825 is our latest version of Facilis Hub, shared file system. Go over some of that. Smart access rules. Smart access rules were shipped about a year ago, and last year at NAB we didn't really know how to demo it very well. We knew kind of what it was, but in the last year we figured out like, wow, this is actually really cool, and we need to like pay more attention to this and tell people about it because it is very unique in its architecture and in its code. WAN link remote access, of course, big pull for 2022 and beyond, 2020 and beyond, I guess, is remote access. So we're accommodating that without the need for a VPN, and a lot of people are getting much better performance than they thought they could from their home system to their server with a piece of software that's included with our servers, and it doesn't require anything else, no licensing, no additional cost. Then Fast Tracker 3.8. So much to talk about with Fast Tracker. I'm not going to get into real specifics here. I'll get into sort of the overview of the features that we have, but Fast Tracker has a bit of a sea change, bit of a change in how it works in terms of relying more upon metadata when it comes to cataloging and proxy generation and things like that. So I'll get into that a little bit. So let's go over first the hub architecture, the models that we have, and sort of how it all lines up. First of all, the Hub 8. Hub 8 is, I told Matt the other day, like, if I had a facility, I'd just keep buying Hub 8s because they're great, they're fast, they're easy, you can move them around, you can stack them up, you can put fiber channel behind them and stack them all into one big unit if you want to. And they're really great, they're cheap, I think it's a great system. Obviously the upsell, to the 16 and 24 is a good bet. But it's up to 176 terabytes capacity now because we're using 22 terabyte drives in that unit. That's a lot for a 2U. And then 1 gigabyte per second benchmark. And you get all of that. You get over a gigabyte from a single client if you're trying to do some 4K resolve work or something that I can show you. So it's a fast box. It has all the features of the high-end systems, which is great. No throttling or crippling of functionality like we sometimes see with other products out there. So if a normal sort of environment might be, maybe you got a 4K HQX 30p client, you got a couple on ProRes 4K 30p and a couple more on XAVC 60p. It's a small work group, and then you have some others that are doing graphics and whatever else. That's kind of what a Hub 8 was built for. And we have a lot of people out there, a lot of companies that are 2 or 3 users, perfect for this type of system. Then we go to the 16 or 24, up to 528 terabytes of capacity in 4U now with the 22 terabyte drives. 2 to 2.5 gigabytes per second or so. And this is the building block, of course. For everything going forward, all of our larger environments, the 4U, we went to this 4U chassis, which is different. You can see the rack ears are a bit different, the face is a bit different, the bezel and all that. We went to this for 2 reasons. One, it allowed 24 drives in a 4U enclosure, which we couldn't get with our old chassis manufacturer. And we're doing all of our vertical SSD modules in this box. And so that gives us the models that you'll see coming up in a moment. But this chassis has been really good for us. So something like this would be about double of what you saw with the Hub 8. A couple of clients running that high-speed HQX, a few more on 4K, 422, and so forth. And that's a good place to be. Any more than that, then we're talking about maybe adding another chassis on top of it, which brings it to a Hub 32 or a Hub 48. Take 2 chassis of 16, 2 chassis of 24, you end up with that. Now we're up to over a petabyte in capacity for that 8U server system. 3 to 4 gigabytes per second benchmark, you'll get 4 plus. Our benchmarks, our stream counts, they're all really conservative because we don't want to hear the phone call after it gets installed that you sold me something that doesn't perform to your specifications. So that will never be something you'll hear from a customer. So this would be, a lot more of these clients. Maybe you have, 20 some odd clients here all doing various, types of finishing resolutions. This isn't XTCAM 50 megabits. This isn't, X260, H264 stuff. This is finishing high speed, high bit rate clients, and there's a lot of them. So then you go to the Flashpoint. And the Flashpoint has been a popular model for us that we've sold a lot of the Flashpoint 24s to use. They start at 24 terabytes in capacity. starts at a low price. And a lot of times what I'll use the Flashpoint 24, which is the 2U for, I'll use that as a hub 1. Remember the old hub 1? It acts as the sort of the aggregator for multiple units below it. The Flashpoint can be used that, but you also have 24 terabytes of SSD, flash storage on it, and 6 gigabytes per second from the head unit. So people who are out there with 24Ds or older hub 16s, attach those up to a Flashpoint, you get two benefits. You get that aggregation through a newer, more faster motherboard processor combination, and you get a big cache of SSD right in the front. So they can use that for their finishing work and color grading. So this would, when we, I should talk about this first. Up to 192 terabytes in capacity, and that's with the 4 terabyte drive. There's 48 SSDs in there. You can see the vertical method that we're adding the SSD drive to this chassis, which is the reason, as I mentioned, we did this chassis. 10 gigabytes per second. That's a real number. That's so real, in fact, that I kind of stopped. I stopped before I got to the where the benchmark really would be. So when we say 10 gigabytes a second, I can show you something like this, which is we monitor a bunch of different clients coming in over the network. They're on multiple connection methods: 32 gig fiber channel, 25 gig Ethernet, 10 gig, and there's 5 or 6 clients hitting it all at the same time. So this is not a benchmark I'm just running on the server and saying, oh yeah, you should get this. This is real clients hitting it from external locations on different connectivity methods. And you can see it's not really breaking a sweat. None of the CPU cores are maxed out. And even though you see some dips there, that's a test cycle. That's not the problem with the drive. The drives are actually so calm that you can't really see it in here, but you see there's hardly any pending. And the drives are only about 50% utilization. So that's at 10 gigabytes per second. So now we're going to go well beyond that if the customer requires it, and we have some flexibility there in talking to customers who require 12 or 14 gigabytes a second. And we have had that. I mean, it's amazing these days what people, if they know what's out there, they're going to ask for more. There's just that much more. And so this is what we get with writes. It's also I get over 6 gigabytes per second on just all writes all the time, and I'm only maxing out maybe 1 core here of all of these. That's a really tough thing to do, and this is in a RAID protected mode. So I'm doing RAID protection through software and getting 6 gigabytes per second right in this box. So that's what it tells you, that the architecture of the hub system and the shared file system is really flexible and has a lot of benefit when it comes to this type of shared media, because I can get right up to the end of what the box can give me through the shared file system. And then, of course, an army can work on this thing in real time with multiple different types of resolutions. And you can change that top one to be, 4K 60p uncompressed DPX 16-bit if you want, and it'll work. So what this really comes down to is, for folks that aren't as aware of where our real differentiation lies, it is the shared file system. The shared file system is under constant development. There's always something changing. And because there's always something changing, sometimes we've got to go back and write a patch, because we changed the wrong thing. But it's changing in a good direction. It's trending up in terms of bandwidth all the time, utilizing the latest processor and motherboard combinations for speed. Simplifies our permissions. I mean, nowhere else can you say, you know what, I just want everyone to have all access to all files all the time, regardless of where they are, with a local user or a domain user or what. They're just going to have access to everything. In network storage, it doesn't work that way. There's always some authentication that has to happen. There's always something you have to do. So this is where the shared file system comes in with simplicity, and then also enables all of our smart access rules, which is a more complex method of permissioning, but it would also keep it really simple and allows you a way out of it as well, which a lot of customers won't get into complex permission schemes because they're afraid of breaking everything, right? And then with us, you can do that, and if you break something, you can just kind of pull it all out and go back to the way you were real quick, like in a second. So Fast Tracker, of course, is something that we talk about every time we have one of these meetings. 3.8 is going to be coming out in the summer, and so most of the stuff I'll talk about is 3.8 improvements. 3.7.5 is the latest version we have right now, and it indexes, it tags, search, browse. Now we have AI auto tagging, which is done through Google Video Intelligence, metadatabase proxy and catalog, which means it's not the proxy generation for those of you who use Fast Tracker. It's not anymore, it's in this location, so I'm going to make a proxy of it. No, it has to be maybe in that location, also an MP4 over a certain duration, in a certain path, but not in this path, excluding that path. So we can do a lot of things with metadata in how that we approach. And the catalogs aren't based anymore on locations either. They're also based on filters. You put things in that catalog if it's an MP4 and it's out of that path and it was over a certain duration or under a certain size, whatever it might be. So we're doing a lot of different things with how we're dealing with housekeeping within the MAM itself, because we have a lot of customers who have gotten these really huge databases and they're saying, this structure isn't great. It's great when we started, but it's not great anymore. So we're starting to move in that direction. Object Cloud, LTO, S3 Private Cloud, these are all things that extend our data set into the cloud, into LTO archive. Simplest way possible to deploy a cloud or LTO system is to use a cache volume. You make a volume like any other volume, you throw something on it, depending on the folder it lands in, it goes to LTO, it goes to cloud, you restore it back the same way, you pull it right back off. Or you use Fast Tracker as the method of doing exactly that, putting it onto the cache, putting it back off, and then Fast Tracker, of course, knows all the data about it, knows what cloud bucket it's on, it knows what cartridge, LTO cartridge it lives on, so it has all that information as well. So when we talk about some of the tenets of the product, reliability ends up being one of them. But what do we mean by reliability? This is not a 5 nines, 6 nines type of reliability speech. This is about can you reliably access your data? And I think the shared file system has a lot to do with that. Because with the shared file system, you as a facility owner, not knowing much about computers, can make a file system, assign it to a couple users, and not be afraid they're not going to be able to use it, because they will. And that's really the basis of the Facilis product, is that we're always going to supply the easiest way possible for you to get access to your data. And that's what makes it reliable. Not that it's running in the background. You call up your NAS company and say, this application isn't working right with your storage. And they'll say, is it running? Is it mounted to your desktop? Okay, then you might want to call Adobe. So we take pride in being able to make our systems reliable in any situation that we run across, and not just the fact that it's running, which it is. So our support is really something that we spend a lot of time on. The folks that we've added on the West Coast are mostly support people. They ramp up over time. You don't get a Matt Mullen on day one, but luckily we have him. And so we bring these support people on, and we trust you guys to tell us, like, hey, by the way, he was really good. And you do that a lot. Thank you. We also trust you to tell us, like, hey, he didn't really know what he was talking about. So we can actually do some training and make sure that he does better the next time around. He or she, I'd love to have some female support people, but we don't. Being in Hudson, Massachusetts, we're not exactly metropolitan, so we got to take what we can get. So dedication is something that we're serious about, being true to our base, maintaining industry knowledge, maintaining industry partnerships, and just knowing that our customers rely upon us for more than just the buttons on the box or the buttons in the software. We have customers that come to us and say, hey, so I get this flashing light on my UPS. It's like, well, that's not a Facilis UPS. Like, yeah, but you guys know all about this stuff, right? So I love that, because it's like, yeah, we could probably put you in the right direction there. Application-based stuff, software-based stuff, things that we have no responsibility over. Customers will come to us, and we're not going to push them away. We'll try and help them the best we can. I always talk about NAS versus shared file system and things like that, and that's kind of what we always talk about. It's not SMB. It's not NFS, CIF shares. This is going to be something that does require software on the client side, and always will, but in version 8.2.5, we actually have what we call an SMB utility share. And that SMB utility share allows you to go into our interface, set up users for read or write access on an SMB share, which then will be the directory structure that contains all of the shared volumes. This is for people who want to have archive boxes, headless systems, encoders, whatever, and just be able to throw a network share at them and not worry about updating their shared file system software all the time, which tends to be the complaint. So that's what we did in version 8.2.5, is we said, okay, we're going to just work it like a normal SMB share, but we're going to allow you to put in some permissions for a user and things like that to do it. But it's not going to be individual volume, it's going to be the entire set of volumes, which most people who do this were looking for anyway. So it can be network or block attached, and of course that's differentiation from NAS all day long. Another big thing that we don't talk about as much, it was a big feature in 2008, and it still is, but we don't talk about it much because we assume everybody already knows this. But I'm on some phone calls and I get some raised eyebrows. So we do a drive set virtualization. It's for consistency, so that when we have a percentage full going to 50, 60, 70, 80% full, that line is our performance. We're going to flatline our performance. Now, this is not file system fragmentation based or anything like that. I mean that our system being 90% full, you can make a volume for a new project that's going to be as fast as when it was 0% full. No difference. Everybody else, of course, they're going to have that come off of high performance at about 80 or 90% full, and then you end up with about a 15% or so of the server that can't be used because of that. In a 350 terabyte system, that's over 50 terabytes of space that you can't really use in the way that you could use the rest of the storage. And you can't really say, well, I'm just going to put low bandwidth jobs at the end of the drive. You can't do that. I mean, because you don't know where it's going to end up. So the fact that we have this flat line of performance all the way across the drive set at whatever capacity you're at makes a big deal. And we also have things something called I/O balance, and we have something called fairness. It's not a very technical term, but what that is when we see two clients coming in at the same time, accessing the server in the same way, we're going to try and find equilibrium between them. And we're not going to let the client who happens to have a faster processor, who happens to have a faster computer, take all the bandwidth from the other one, which is exactly what will happen with NAS. You'll have one client kind of chugging right along, the other one comes in and maybe he's a bit faster, got a faster box, just bought this year. He's going to start to take all that bandwidth away. And then what do? Then you get a bigger switch and a faster server. So what we're going to do is we're going to sort of find that equilibrium, and we're going to sort of set them up right. And we can see this happening when you put multiple clients on the server and you just watch. You watch the status view, and you'll see them sort of like kind of just equal out to a point where they're almost 50-50. This makes a huge difference, and this makes a huge difference to people who are used to working with NAS systems that are always very spiky and very inconsistent in the way they deliver bandwidth. So valuable integrations, LTO library, LTFS spanning, replication. You must know by now we do all this through Zendata, great partner of ours. They help us out a lot when it comes to being flexible about partnerships, about clients who need specific types of licenses. We have a company that we've accommodated them. They're a nonprofit, so we were able to bring the pricing down on some LTO licenses for a library we had lying around. So we incorporated the whole thing into the Facilis system, and it's great. So they give us LTO. They give us all of our cloud. Right this year, they did the Seagate Live Cloud, so we're compatible with that as well as Wasabi, AWS, and Azure. And our S3 private cloud server, it's all through Zendata. And Zendata is not just, we don't just throw the software on there and ship it out and tell you to talk to them. We support the whole thing, and that's where John spends a lot of his time in dealing with LTO, dealing with cloud, all the file group rules, everything you need to know about that. And of course, the strong MAM workflow toolbox. In this version of Fast Tracker, we're going to go over more of this, but we now have the ability to have internally or externally attached proxies. So if you have proxies out of the camera, have proxies out of a telestream box or whatever, you can attach to those on the records without having to create the proxies yourself. AI auto tag, transcription, now we're up to 125 languages because that's what Google has. It's amazingly fast too, getting up and down. We think this was the right time to do the AI stuff because we didn't want to spend a month coding it before, and now it's become really easy. So there's really no reason for us not to do it. The only problem is that we still have our localized transcription service, which only has a few languages and it's not as accurate. But for people who don't want to push everything up to the cloud, we still will offer that, and that's a no charge. So let's talk about the console a little bit. When I talk about the console and I talk about the permissions aspect and all of that, you got to put these things in perspective. So just look around the web and look around for people who are trying to do certain things. with the permissions of files, folders, to users, and you'll see how complex these things really are, which is why most facility owners and engineers avoid it like the plague, and they just say, let's set it up really simple and just be done with it. I know it hurts your workflow, but let's just set it up that way. So this is just someone who is trying to create new files in the folder, but not being able to modify them. So yeah, so I can make a new file there, but then afterwards I can't take it back out again. Just about impossible without some manual interaction in standard ACL terms and world. Someone else was trying to get, give someone read, modify, but not delete access to a local user. Someone just logged into their local PC. And everyone had all these suggestions of what they can do, and it didn't work. Nothing worked. Because you're dealing with multiple user accounts here. There's a domain user account, well, which user account, the local user account. No one could do it. We can do those. We can do those in a couple presses of a button. And that's what I think is really amazing about our permissions model, our policy engine, our smart access rules. So we'll give you full access control. When you first make a volume and you just want to throw it out there to the world, you can say, everybody write, everybody have a good time, totally non-secure, but we trust everybody. You're all staff people. You know by now not to delete folders on other people, right? So that's no problem, no ownership, no attributes to worry about. And then we have a secondary file and folder level access that we can put on through our policy engine, through the smart access rules. And that's when we go into, you can only read that folder, you can only read that file, you can't delete anything, you can't have any access to those folders. And that's when we can get into a lot more of what people are used to doing on traditional NAS systems, but they can't do things like this. They can't say, you're not going to be able to delete a file type. So NP4s, R3Ds, raw camera files, based on you being a local desktop user or one of our local users, which is a user and password, or a domain user, you can't delete anything that has a Premier Project extension on it. That's really, really difficult, if not impossible, to do in the types of environments our customers find themselves in the network, and really, really easy to do with smart access rules. We can allow create only with no read. That was the one that user was trying to do. They said, I want to be able to put a file there, and then I don't want to be able to pull it back out again. I don't want to be able to read it back out again. That's because you have these facilities who have single workstations with all the card readers, attached over USB, and people come in from multiple projects that are in the facility, and they just start ingesting all their media. TPN comes in and says, like, you can't do that, because that's the same. They're not all permission to all the projects that are being ingested here. So we fixed that because I sit down, I put my data into my project volume, I just leave it in the desktop and walk away. Next person that sits down says, oh, look, a project volume I'm not assigned to. They open it up, it can't open, you can't copy anything off, you can't do anything with it. And this is what makes it secure. I can put more stuff on there if I want to, if I have that permission, but I can't take anything back out again. And that is one of the things that people get raised eyebrows about. It's like, yeah, so that means that I can, without having to make someone their own file system, I can just make access to a folder for this person to ingest to. I can plop it on their desktop and they can do whatever they want. And if their kids are running around, they're not going to be opening up things and taking them back out again. So it's great for remote workflows, as well as for secure local area workflows. We can securely audit file systems. So read, write, delete, create, all of these audits we can perform. And once again, it's not just sort of audit everything, it's audit deleting stuff. It's audit that group of users that create things. And so we can get down to that level. And then, of course, same thing with the undeletes. I can sort of recycle files, but not every file. I don't care if you're blowing away your text files or whatever else, or your JPEGs from your camera, whatever it might be. But if you try and delete an MP4 that's in this location, I'm not going to really delete it. I'm going to put it over here, so I can restore it later on. So it becomes a valuable tool for folks who are allowing deletes, but at the same time don't want to allow deletes on everything and for everybody. We have something called a global policy. This is the heart of the smart access rules. This is why it's smart access. Global policy is actually defining what happens in different situations. So we have all these little rules that say, okay, I can't read that, but search databases from Avid. It's like, I'm not going to audit every time a search database is created or written to. So there's no use. If it's a project log file, I'm not going to audit that. I'm not going to keep you from deleting or creating that because that's an application-based thing. This also says that if I set up a no delete on a particular file type, and that file is then overwritten or saved by an application, I'm going to allow that to happen because that is the heuristics of how applications work. They need to overwrite something which inherently is a delete of the old version of that file. I'm going to let it happen because I know it's an application doing that and not just someone hitting delete on the folder. And so that is a hugely impactful and great way to sell this and say you can keep your files protected, but you can still work at the same time, which is something that's very difficult to do with most sort of ACL-driven permission sets. So, and once again, this gets too complex. Ciao, as my friend Antonello from Italy likes to say. Cut it all out. All you need to do is select that policy or those policies on that volume and delete it, and it goes right back to being full read-write access for everyone in the beautiful world. So you can go to your customer and say, you should really try this smart access stuff. If you get messed up, just take it out, you know, and then try it on a test volume instead of the one people are working on. You know, that's always a good thing. So it's really easy to back out of it, which I think is part of the reason that you don't see a lot of complex permissions management in facilities is because people are afraid of messing things up. So let's step back a minute and talk about some more basic stuff. This is our 20th year, and there are certain things that are sort of always known about Facilis and the way that we do things. But some things that, you know, everyone might not know about. For example, we can push mount storage volumes. Sitting at the administrator's desk in the administrator either browser or application and being able to put a volume on someone's desktop or pull it back off someone's desktop. You know, that's really cool, and you don't get that from many other solutions out there. You know, I talk about the sort of, I think Nexus had the opportunity to introduce so much of this stuff, and they never did. They have API-based file and folder stuff. You can't even get, there's no UI for it. They do some amount of remote unmounting. They don't do remote mounting or something. So it's like they never really came around to this. We're the most like Nexus, I think, of the other solutions that are out there because we have that client software. And with that client software, we can talk to the server back and forth all the time and create these great features. This is I call it the canon here. Yeah, canon is what my kids talk about when they say like they're little fictional things, but this is canon, but that's just sort of like on the peripheral, it's not real. So canon is, you know, we auto discover the server. We'll fail over between IPs. We'll fail over from fiber channel to Ethernet. Sometimes in the wrong way, so you got to call us up and tell, you know, we'll tell you to blacklist the IP address that you don't want to connect to and things like that. But you know, it shows the flexibility. We're going to connect to however we see to connect, and however we can get to the server, we're going to get there. Multiple types of user accounts. This is really hard for a lot of solutions to say like, okay, I'm going to be an LDAP user, I'm going to log in right now. But then I'm going to also log in as a user with a password that's just on the local server list and get more volumes on my desktop without having to log out of the old user. And these are all things that are difficult to do with other solutions. Prioritize bandwidth by workstation. High priority users get better bandwidth, especially when the bottleneck is the uplink to the switch. And you start to get longer latencies, and you know, we just will say, okay, well, these latencies are pretty long, so that means I'm going to kick in some prioritization. That workstation is high priority, they're going to get their request put to the front of the queue to give them more bandwidth. And everybody else, we'll get what they get. So it's a little demonstration. Smart access rules, and well, I'm not going to do smart access rules today. I'm going to do WAN link though. So let me get out of this for a second here and bring up. Now this has been inconsistent, I'm sorry to say. But we'll go ahead and check this out anyway. This Wi-Fi is not great. So what we're looking at here is an empty client console. In my settings here, you see I have a couple of wide area network addresses here. These happen to be domains that are tied to public IP addresses to my facility back in Hudson. It could be a domain name or it could be just the public IP, doesn't matter. But I have also ports there, 3861, 3862. Those are mapped to port 861 on two different servers because port 861 is our console port. So we're doing a port forward here. So I come in out of the blue and I have a client console, and I put those addresses in, and all of a sudden I see, hopefully, cross your fingers, servers. Okay, so that's the first thing you see is I have 2 servers that are attached now that I can actually see. That's all I can do at this point until I get authorization from the client. Why am I logged out? Okay, hold on. Okay, this is the Wi-Fi going a little crazy on me here. Hold on a second. How's everybody doing? Good? That's good. That's good. Good to hear. And we're almost back. And we're almost back. There we go. Okay, try that. My password to my system at work is an engine model. You can ask me later. I'm not sure I'll tell you what it is, but because I'm kind of a motorhead. No, not engine, not train engine. It's like when my friends who are engineers and like video engineers, and they have the card that says engineer. And I have one guy that said engineer, not train type. So anyway, here I am back at the facility here. So let me get over to my, all right. Great, okay. So let's do that. And so now I have this thing here. All right, so I can do this here, I think. There we go. There we go, all right. So I have this list of users, and this is back at the facility. Meanwhile, at the facility, I can see here that I have one that's unauthorized, which is my laptop. So it sees it comes in, this is the IP address of Lawry's, where you're sitting, and it's unauthorized. So that means I get no permissions. In fact, I know I have no permissions because this is the client console of my laptop. It has nothing there. So I have to go in here and I have to set settings. I have to go LAN and internet. Okay. And yeah, since the IP went away, that probably means that I lost my Wi-Fi here. So let's check that. That's not where I wanted to go. Okay, let's go to volumes and hit refresh. And yeah, and the Wi-Fi is down again. All right, so the authorization at the admin console back at the facility gives me the ability to then see the volumes that I have access to. And that's sort of our, besides the fact that we're only listening to the protocol that's coming in through that port forward, it's only our protocol. We won't let anything happen until we actually have authorization to use that particular client. See, the servers went away too. Yeah, that's always awesome. All right, well, come see us at the hall because amazingly we have wired internet there, so it will be a lot better. WAN link is it's a streaming method of accessing data. So in that, we're not going to be as fast as the caching systems because they're going to put everything local and let you access it that way. But we're also, going to be a lot faster than VPN. So when people ask us, how fast is WAN link? It's 1,000 different answers. How fast is your VPN? That's usually why people talk about WAN link in the first place, is because VPN's too slow. How slow is too slow? 5 megabits. You probably get 15 megabits with WAN link. Is it 25 megabits? You might get 75 megabits of WAN link. It's about 3 times the speed of VPN, or so we've seen so far through our testing and through our customers. And so that gives our customers some flexibility. I can create a proxy workflow for them with H.264 1080 proxies at about 3 or 4 megabits that work with timecode burn-in, and you can do all your editing this way, and they'll actually play back just fine over our WAN link connection, and they won't over VPN. So this is something to consider as we move forward into this brave new world. Okay. Good. And I am now over here. Doo-doo-doo. But because everything is better with video, as we know, let's have a little video. Huh. You should send this to your customers who are asking about it.
LAN is local area network. When you're in the facility on your network at work.
Because some of these things are so simple, but their customers just may not know.
At a coffee shop or another facility. Normally, people use VPN. VPN is a virtual private network.
Mm-hmm.
VPN uses software that adds your home system to the network within the facility. Your system can now connect to all the network resources inside the facility. To do this securely, VPN software uses a tunnel, which is simply a private pathway between your system and the internal network. But unfortunately, it causes quite a lot of latency, so we get slow performance. On the other hand, Facilis has WAN link, wide area network link, through our own client software through the Facilis shared file system, so that at home, you're connecting directly to the storage that you want to see, not to the entire network and not through a tunnel. Because of this, we get up to 3 times the speed of standard VPN access of the same storage, and it's encrypted as safe as a VPN. Through WAN link client, the volumes appear the same on your remote desktop as they do in the facility. And because of that, we achieve collaboration, project and media sharing with Premiere Pro, Avid Media Composer, Final Cut Pro, and DaVinci Resolve. If you use the Facilis management console at work, it's just as easy to use it for remote clients. The same user account and passwords, the same basic storage permissions and file and folder access rules, the same user bandwidth control, and full auditing and monitoring of all the attached lines. Facilis is proud to offer the WAN link.
We are proud. We're very proud. So WAN link, even though I don't have very, listen, if you're on Wi-Fi at home, you're probably not a professional video artist. Get yourself a wired connection. It works really well. So Fast Tracker, let's go over this a little bit, and this is sort of the bulk of the rest of what I want to talk about. I often, when we do this development for Fast Tracker, I sometimes step back and say, like, who are we doing this for again? We have some sort of customer requests, they'd like to be able to do these certain things. But then we just have a lot of other great ideas about things that we could be doing. So once in a while I think about, like, is this actually, for no one development? And because of that I looked up For No One, because I thought I recognized the song, and it's actually a Beatles song, and it's called For No One. I can sing every word to it, but you don't want that. So when we develop things, we develop them in such a way as to provide features that we think a customer may latch onto, and then we go ahead and provide refinement of that feature. So features that are coming out at first rev, in Fast Tracker, probably aren't the most refined features. We're waiting for someone to say, like, yes, that's what I want, make it do this. We're not custom engineering company, of course, but we're constantly working on this product. And you'll see that a lot of the things we've done in the user interface and definitely in functionality are way advanced in 3.8. So first of all, Fast Tracker has a browse and a search UI. You can browse everything that's been indexed, all the different folders, browse through them, search through individual locations, or you can search across all the catalogs or locations that you have already indexed. We have now metadata-based proxy. Proxies used to be only based on sort of whatever location you index went out to be proxied. Now I can set up a proxy to be any number of different filters that I want, and that can be right down to the metadata that you've added later on, and I can just apply that proxy filter. Everything that has the approval tag on it go ahead and make this proxy on that so we can send it off to whoever. So that's new in 3.8. File movement and copy, either on demand or on a scheduled basis in the background, also filter based. So the schedule is now being able to move data on how long ago it was indexed. It's now being able to do things like, flush data from the cloud cache based on how long ago it was indexed. So it has that timeout sort of feature to it as well. Duplicate and lost file tracking, we hash every file. We do a binary fingerprint on every file to be sure that it's the same file. We find it someplace else, we're not going to make a new record for it. We make put it on the same record and just have a different file location for it. Metadata entry, of course, as you'd expect to be able to add metadata to the clips. But now with the new AI, we have not only the localized transcription service, but we also have the full image recognition analysis as well. And it's really, I gotta stop that, I'm sorry, ignore that. It's really simple to set up, and it's really easy to see the labels. The labels come in as markers, and they'll come into Adobe as markers on the clips as well. And you can search on the markers that were created by the artificial intelligence image recognition. And of course, the transcriptions all come back, from Google AI as well. So we have access to that many more languages that we can work with. Really, it's unlimited. Now the Adobe panel, it fits right into this because the Adobe panel is how we're getting all this stuff into Premiere. And we're doing a lot of new things with the panel this year. It includes things like, we've always imported metadata, so that's the same. We've always attached proxies, so that's all the same. But now, we're sending transcriptions directly into the captions feature. So no longer are we sending transcriptions in to be markers on the timeline where they kind of look messy. The markers in the timeline are now just points based on the AI labels. And the transcriptions come on to we do an automatic SRT file import to Adobe. So now they're coming up on the transcriptions track within the Adobe timeline. So that's a good feature. We can also gather project sources. So we can take a project that's in place, timeline that's in a project window in Adobe, and gather up all the sources, basically show you a list of all the sources of search results. And with that, we can even say, hey, there's some sources that you have that aren't indexed yet. Do you want me to index those? And we'll go out and index those for you so that you see them all on your list. So we're doing a lot of things, because Adobe allows us a lot of flexibility in how we can code for Premiere Pro. We're doing a lot with Premiere Pro. We're doing an auto ingest workflow in 3.8. So auto ingest just means that I select a location on my local workstation and I tell it to ingest to whatever location was set previously by the administrator. It will index everything on my local desktop, the card reader, the hard drive, whatever it might be, and then it will move it to the server, move the primary copy label over to the server, and do all the processing, the proxying and AI and transcriptions, all the stuff you need, while still holding on to its previous location where it lived on your desktop. So it's sort of a one-step ingest, changing primary and creating the server records all in one step. So that's what people have been asking for. We also still have, which I'll show you in a minute, the web upload feature as well, because we have a whole other feature set in Fast Tracker, which is our remote feature set. So web browser access, remote download of sources and proxies to your desktop wherever you happen to be. Remote upload ingest. This is sort of like the web-based ingest feature where I can just drag things in there. It's going to go to a predetermined location based upon my user account. They'll end up there. They'll get indexed in that location. And you'll see them back in the list of records. We have something new called approval links, which is ability to create a web link from the Fast Tracker interface, send that over, email it to someone. It comes up in a new interface that basically says, here's your thing, make it full screen, play it down. You can post a comment on it. So it's a little Dropboxy type thing that we've done as well for some customers who, once again, have requested this. So see, it's not all for no one. It's some of these features are actually being requested on a daily basis, and so we hear about them. So as far as licensing is concerned, licensing is not applicable in year one. Everything goes out of our facility with support in year one and warranty. So Fast Tracker is there. You get Fast Tracker for the first year. From that point forward, it's included in the support contract. I mess up sometimes and say it's free or included, and it's really, it's included in the support contract, but I just assume everyone to hold on to their support contract whenever possible, year on year, and I hope that you're consulting with all your customers to do that, because it just makes a lot of sense. I mean, this is the low-end support contract too. This is which is still the case, and you'll see in a minute in the pricing, flat fee $2,000 a year. Flat fee $2,000 a year for all of our tech support, remote access, remote upgrades, licensing, major and minor releases, and Fast Tracker with all of its features. You get all that for $2,000 a year, from the point that you buy it, the 1 year in buying the system. So it's really crazy if you don't want to do that. And then, perpetual license is also available. Perpetual license is available, but then we'll charge you a yearly support fee of $9.90, which is half the cost of your actual Facilis software support, which is this is why it's crazy. Just buy a support contract. Perpetual licenses are important for people who have alternate products. So Zen Data is now utilizing Fast Tracker when they sell their systems. They're selling it with Fast Tracker and with a bundle for first-year support and all that stuff. Well, for deployment services and things like that. So we will do perpetual licenses and a yearly support for that perpetual license in that case. This is the booth this year, and yeah, it's orange. We have an orange, it's called Paprika, actually, the carpet. And so we don't have any orange in the design, but we have orange on the carpet. I like it. We'll see how it works in sort of comparison with the aisle carpet, which looks to be kind of purple reddish. Might clash badly. We'll see. But we're going to be doing booth demos of smart access rules, Flashpoint 48, Fast Tracker 3.8, of course. The WAN link client will be active there. We do have a wired internet there, so we'll be able to have we'll see. It's a shared internet. We'll have much better performance than here, I assure you. And of course, remote Fast Tracker as well, because Fast Tracker can be accessed over a port forward as well on a public IP address, and a lot of our customers have used it that way and do use it that way. So now that we're done with that sort of markety pitch of all the features, let's get into some pricing stuff. So we have a new Flashpoint 48, of course, and the Flashpoint 48, as you can see here, goes from 46 to about 115,000 US, and that's 48 to 192 terabytes. At 48 terabytes with 10 gigabytes per second, I mean, I'm old enough to know, and I'm sure most of you are here too, 48 terabytes was a pretty big system not too long ago. 48 terabytes with 10 gigabytes a second. You can get into that for under 50K, which is only a few grand more than the 24 drive SSD 48 terabytes. So why wouldn't you pay that much more for all that extra speed? Really double the bandwidth capability. So that's where our pricing lies there. 3 models of each, 24 and 48. And then we have Fast Tracker MAM and Cloud Cache Server. This was introduced last year, but a lot of people don't know it exists because we don't talk about it as much. The Fast Tracker Edge is built to be inserted into an environment that may already have shared storage, that may already be using an alternate shared storage environment or a NAS system, and it can serve as your MAM server. It can serve as your cloud cache system. You can see here that we include 10 terabyte license of cloud storage along with our base model, which is under 10 grand. You pay 5 grand just for the perpetual Fast Tracker license, So to me, this just seems like a great deal. And this is something where, you'll never get Facilis storage into this place because they're all this, So this is a great way to introduce them to what we can do, get the logo out there in front of them, actually, so they can see the interface and see the value that we add. And maybe they'll even start to use it as a, shared storage server, because we're not stopping you from doing that. We're just sort of positioning it in such a way where it's meant to be placed into an environment where they just need some MAM coverage or some sub-MAM coverage. We are putting Fast Tracker into places that already have MAM systems, but it's just not exactly right for the video people, right? And so it makes a lot of sense. Throw this in there, let it index everything. Yeah, you go work on your big damn MAM system in your corporate environment. We're gonna work on our Fast Tracker here. So just consider that and what that does for you. Support and warranty has changed. We did a hard look at our support costs. We hate to raise prices, as you can tell. We haven't raised any system prices for a long time, even with everything that's been going on. We have done some incremental changes in some other areas. Support and warranty is one of them. We had systems that were going out for over $100,000 US that had, less than 5,000, full total care coverage year on year. That doesn't make any sense. Not for us, not for you. And we were leaving money on the table. So we did increase those support costs for the higher end systems. You can still get all the way up to 192 terabyte system with just that same $5,000 a year. And as Shane mentioned, it's really important to us. Support and warranty is a big part of our business. So we don't want to chase anybody away. If they bought the system thinking that they'd have that $5,000 a year and now it costs them, 7 or 9, come to us and we'll figure it out. But from this point forward, make sure to disclose this new support year on year and how much it's going to cost, because it's more in line with the cost of the system and what you're getting with it, which is, of course, all the fast tracker functionality and all the new access rules. And just so much development goes into the product. So then we have our spare SSDs and hard drives. We don't include a spare drive anymore with systems. We haven't since last January 2022. And that was just one of the things we did when we started getting logistics pricing increases. We said, okay, spare drives is something that we're going to have to now just kind of throw us a bone here, give us a little bit. So we now have 22 terabyte models, and the 22 terabyte models go up to half a petabyte in 4U, a full petabyte in 8U. So that's going to allow for a lot more density. And for some folks who just want to have the highest capacity drives, want to have the highest density system they possibly can, we'll be able to offer that now. And then 64 gig fiber channel is available. I personally am not fully impressed and convinced about 64 gig yet. It's for the cost especially. I don't think it's where it should be. But we're working with Addo on that, and hopefully we'll be able to bring that speed up. The one thing it does actually bring up by about 1,000 to 1,500 megasecond the speed of a Windows system on shared file system, on multi-user write. So for folks, my big thing about Windows systems running complex software, high CPU usage with fiber channel is that it's always going to work better. Always, always, always. I don't care what kind of Ethernet, what kind of NAS you have, what kind of switches in there, you're always going to get better performance on fiber channel than you will on Ethernet in the application where it really matters. So 64 gig in that case, getting up to about 3,500 megabytes per second now to a Windows workstation in the applications that they're using is really good. So this is a fringe thing. You're not selling to those customers every week, but 64 gig will help us there. Basic connectivity has some uplifts, and this is something else we did because the card prices were going up and we weren't getting any relief from our vendors. So we have now just the 10 gig connections that are free included with the systems. That's either copper or SFP+. And then we have everything else that is going to be an uplift. So this is new, and if you have quotes out there that don't have this because you made them 3 or 4 months ago, we get that. Just come to us and say there's going to be a little bit of a weird thing here. But from this point forward, when you redo your quotes, always look at your basic connectivity. Basic connectivity, you only get one of them. We do get that mistake from time to time. Basic is just one. It's like the system identifier of the old days, right? So you get one of those, and then everything else is expanded. And the basic connectivity for the higher bandwidth cards are an uplift now, all the way up to 64 is not on there. It was on the addendum. Okay, all the way up to 64 gig. So with that, we are almost complete, except for questions. But I will ask. I'll ask first. If there's any questions of what I've gone through so far, and anything that you want to ask now, or wait until we see you at the booth and we can explain a little bit better. Don't ask me to go show you the WAN link again, because I just don't trust the Wi-Fi. Please. I don't trust the Wi-Fi. They screwed me twice now. I'm gonna have to bring your puck next time. Yeah. We know. Yeah. I know you have. You have WAN link set up for all of your customers, so you just open up and you can see all of your customers' servers and all their volumes. Yeah. So good. If there's no questions, oh yeah, sure, go ahead. So when you get JSON stuff back from the AI services, it contains way too much information. So it's our job to sort of pare that down to high confidence matches, right? And so we get a lot of information. We just don't want to give it all to you because you'll just be like, well, this is useless. So we pare it down to where we think it should be. In doing that, we get a high level of accuracy for each individual one. We may miss a couple things that are low level confidence, but we're going to get higher accuracy in the ones that we give you. But often you'll see that it'll repeat. You know, like in one frame, it'll see this happening. In the other frame, it'll see this, and then 5 seconds later, it'll see this thing it just saw 5 seconds ago. We haven't gotten to the point where we're removing a lot of duplicates like that, but you know, this isn't shipping it either. But I think accuracy is good. It knows if it's a cat or a dog. You know, it actually gets down to that level. It said there was a front loader in one of the clips. It said it was a bulldozer. Close enough. You know, it's like, you know, it's pretty good. You know, if someone's wearing a white lab coat, it'll say medical person or like hospital or something like that. So it's not bad. You know, and you know, with this, we're really looking to find out, you know, what does this help? You know, we're going to throw it out there and say, does this help, or how could we change it to make it better? You know. Yep. You know, there's a possibility to do that. I don't think we've gotten that deep into it. And I think it would be good to talk about that and sort of what you're looking for, you know, when we do the demos at the show. Because that's something where, you know, you might be able to tell us more about what it does than we're telling you. So, yeah, go ahead.
One more question. Is it an add-on that is priced separately, or is it included in the support?
We don't add anything to plug in to Google Intelligence service, but you pay for the Google Intelligence service. You know, so that's your account. But yeah, well, we don't charge anything to plug into it.
We have access to
You basically tell us, all you do is you tell Fast Tracker what your project number is and the cloud bucket, and we're just going to go use it, and then you create the key, and we put the key in there, and you're good. Yep. Anything else? Let's move on to awards. We got more awards. All right, so this is the President's Club Award, but the president isn't here. Our president, Joe, had fallen ill, so he is not here, so no awards. Shane will play the role of Joe for the awards. And we're going to just pass out a few awards to some resellers in no particular order who did well last year. You know, there's no like tolerance number, there's no like, you know, anything like that. We're gonna recognize some folks who did a really good job. And the first one is a company that's been with us forever. I can't remember not working with them. And you know, it was, you know, for me, having been in New York just prior to moving up to Massachusetts, I spent almost every couple of weeks with these guys, going around the city, you know, doing meetings, and so it's good that I think, you know, if we were like Car and Driver with the 10 best list, like you can say how many years in a row a certain car was on there, but I'm pretty sure they've been on almost every one of our reseller awards for NAB, and that is Video Technologies Group, VTG. Thank you. Come on up. Come on up. Helped in no small part by the aforementioned Westbrook deal, I must say, but they do very well outside of that as well. Oh yes, picture. Yes, more crystal for you.
Okay, I'll let you hold this one.
You can have it on the side.
All right,
Go
good.
ahead. Sorry. See, it didn't shatter.
You should have gone plexiglass. Good?
Good.
All right. We can fix it in post.
Thank
All right. Thank you, VTG. All right. Always good to get someone from the old East Coast, the old stomping grounds. Next one up is a very large reseller. A lot of coverage, a lot of great talented people, great engineers. I mean, like, you know, they sell a lot of products. They do really well with ours. Support some of our very high-end customers on both coasts and in the middle, Key Code Media. Come on up. Come on up. Who's here? Yeah, Tom. I think we have a leak. We lost some key code people. They leaked out. Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah. Come on. All right.
Can you take one on my phone?
Thank you. We're good.
All right. Thank you, key code. All right, thank you, yeah. All right, next up, also a long-term reseller of ours. And these guys are great at marketing. They do a lot of shows that we attend and we get a lot of business out of. Big in government. We just did some recent jobs with them, including Ferguson, who's most Ferguson. They do plumbing supplies. But some of our biggest customers are industrial manufacturers. I don't know why. It's crazy, but it's kind of the system we are, right? So they do great work with us. Great talented people, great salespeople. That's Digital Video Group. On up. Oh, Maryland Public Television, of course. Did that finally close? All right, move over so we're out of the projector light here. Good. All right. Okay. Shane, any last words?
Bring the customers to the booth.
Yeah, bring them to the booth. We're doing demos, fast and furious. Tomorrow is the busiest day. So, we'd love to see you tomorrow, but you might, if you're just walking up, you might have some issues. Monday, Tuesday are probably the best times to come. I think Tuesday probably. Tuesday is best. If you're going to plan something around there, but definitely make us part of your agenda, make us part of your schedule. And we love you guys. Take care and have a great show.